new to this, in pain, and seeking advice/support. Part 2. Then, on April 30th, my wife informed me she was going to work rides and then celebrate her 30th birthday with her cousin, with whom we are both quite close. My wife leaves the home about 11 a.m. on April 30th and does not return until approximately 11 p.m. on May 1st. She returns home and seems distant. I inquire as to how things went. Was she with her cousin the whole time? She's simply being odd and standoffish. Ultimately, she says she's figuring things out and doesn't want to address it until 11 p.m. Clearly, I am now realizing she is unhappy again, and it is about to boil over, and she will want a divorce. I press a little harder, and that is basically what happens. She claims she still loves me but is no longer in love with me, and she wants to divorce and go to live with her father. However, she is unable to go since the aforementioned cousin and her family have moved into the home that we abandoned when we purchased our own. But I, just discovered that the cousin's husband had taken a job several states away and that the whole family would be relocating out there, but not until mid-July. So, until then, my wife would have nowhere to live if she left. It's after midnight and we're both weary. I'm simply in shock, even though I sort of expected this, so I tell her she can stay and we'll speak about it more later. My wife is not sad, regretful, or remorseful at this stage. She is just cold and unpleasant, and her lack of empathy for me is devastating. We ultimately fall asleep in the same bed as usual, while I silently weep myself to sleep. The following several days are difficult, but we talk honestly, and I get the feeling that this isn't the end of the world and that there is yet hope for us someplace. I love her with all of my heart and soul, and I thought to myself, well, I've got 2 months to work on this. Fast forward to that fateful Friday, May 6th, or D-Day. On Fridays, I generally work from home, and my wife and I had been communicating well since the previous weekend, so we were both at home on this day. So I tell her I have a lengthy work call at 1 p.m. that I need to be on for at least 60 to 90 minutes. Earlier in the morning, her father contacts her as she is sitting next to me on the phone. The discussion is strange, and my wife expressly indicates that I am next to her, and her father quickly hurries off the phone. It seemed unusual to me that he would phone her throughout the day, particularly if he was at work, for no apparent reason. Whatever, I felt it was suspicious, but I had business to do in a conference call at 1 p.m. Because my work desk is downstairs in the living room and our bedroom is upstairs, plus our home is quite open and sound travels, the call only lasts about 30 minutes. So I get off my call early, and the house is quiet since everything has been muted for my call. I return to my computer work, but then I hear my wife on the phone with her father again. I didn't care and wasn't trying to listen in, but it was dead quiet and sound travels here, and our home isn't enormous. I can basically hear everything my wife was saying. I was just tuning her out and working at first, so I missed a lot of the conversation, but then I hear things that make me perk right up, like no, he doesn't know that yet and yeah he could help fix it, referring to our aging water heater, but I doubt, my name, would let him in. He was so mad at me he didn't talk to me for weeks when he found out, referring to someone I didn't know, so I have a massive pit in my stomach at this moment. I'm a fairly sharp man, and it was quite obvious that there was something I didn't know about, someone who is evidently a plumber who I don't know about, and someone else who was extremely furious about discovering a secret. I'm too unwell to go up the stairs right now. My wife then comes down and I offer her an opportunity to speak, but she doesn't say anything. About an hour later, she appears, and I follow her, essentially asking if there is anything I should be aware of. She acts stupid at first, then I come out and ask what secret she is keeping from me that her father and others are aware of. I mean, do you really want to know? She replies patronizingly, to which I pause and then positively answer. My reality was entirely broken about 3 p.m. on May 6, 2022. Yes, my wife says, there is another person she has emotions for and has been seeing for some time, how long I don't know, and her aim is to split from me in order to explore a relationship with this other man. I instantly start weeping, maybe for the first time since our wedding day, and it is by far the longest and worst cry I have ever had in my whole life. I was weeping, coughing, dry vomiting, and hyperventilating at the foot of the bed because my biggest dread had just come true. My wife is sitting silently on our bed, not sad, not weeping, not in agony, just quiet. I ask her how long it has been and who he is, and she refuses to answer to protect my emotions. As a result, the trickle of truths begins. I find that she recently informed her father, which is why he called to check on her, but she had no intention of informing me. She told me she was lying and concealing it on purpose to spare my emotions, and that she was going to find this person a few months after we split up, so there would be no harm, no foul. Unfortunately, she was caught, but she showed no guilt or regret. She began crying a little bit after witnessing how completely shattered and inconsolable I was for approximately an hour. She kept repeating, "I'm sorry, I don't want to harm you, and I'd embrace you, but you probably don't want that." So she maintained her distance while I was buried in my hands and, pleading with God and the world to explain why this was happening and how she could do this. I'm sure that was heartbreaking to observe, particularly because I've always been an emotional fortress, which added to our problems. She offers to leave at this moment if I want to help me deal with the devastation. The issue is that over the years, I had gradually alienated myself from any friends, most relatives, and any support group other than my wife, who has always been my rock and confidant. My wife had just ripped out my heart and soul, and she was the only one I felt safe discussing it with. I tell her I don't want her to go because I adore her, so we agree she will remain until mid-July and we would gradually detach from one another, after which she will move out and explore with this new man. Many people would remark at this point that I made a tremendous error by letting her stay instead of just pulling the band-aid. But I was emotionally devastated at the time, and she is genuinely the love of my life, and I was taught to fight for what I love and believe in, and I love her with everything I have, and I know she loves me too, just not romantically. And I can't simply let her go without a struggle because I'll regret not doing all I could while I had the opportunity. I recognize that this choice will likely be more emotionally destructive to me in the long run, but her being here is assisting me in coping and grieving in ways that I couldn't accomplish alone. The bizarre and complex portion is now. The abrupt and tremendous shock and agony of discovering of the affair shocked my brain into seeing what I had been doing wrong and helped me to realize that I needed to be more helpful, loving, and emotionally accessible. In the following days, I was resolved to perform a 180 and transform my whole thinking and attitude toward my wife and our marriage. I started kissing her often, messaging her, telling her how much I loved her, holding her, snuggling her. We were being personal, and it was wonderful. This continued on for 2 weeks, and she stated she was now torn on what to do since I had successfully relit the flame in our love life by just expressing sentiments that were always there, and she was divided on what to do going ahead. This, of course, was the finest thing I could possibly hear at the moment. My wife is thinking of leaving? Is what I'm doing effective? Will we be able to rebuild stronger as a result of this? My wife, on the other hand, had a couple earlier arrangements with Op that I was unaware of, a night away with him to see him race mopeds. Which was last Saturday and Sunday, then a week trip to Myrtle Beach in mid-June, which has been our yearly vacation place together since before our kid was born. I was heartbroken all over again when I found out about this and that she still intended to travel. I discovered that I am now actively competing with, and most likely losing to, this Op. Last Saturday, 5/21, we hosted a barbecue in our backyard to celebrate the good weather. It was in the 90s here, and my cousin and her kids came up, and we had a very lovely family day, and my wife and I were really happy and loving all day. But then that night, she packed her overnight bag, some toys, and kissed me goodbye before leaving to spend the night with Op. That ached like hell. I was on the verge of committing suicide. I regretted asking for the real truth while yet allowing her to live with me and pretending everything was okay. When she returned that Sunday night, we were a little distant, I was still in a lot of pain, and we didn't chat much. The following morning, while I was getting ready for work and getting my kid ready for school, I began to cry and told my wife that we needed to have a lengthy talk. She agrees and embraces me, saying that this is hurting her and that she is torn, that she dreaded leaving me that Saturday, and that she wants to use her next trip with Op in June to truly think out and determine what I want to do. This upsets me, but I have a glimmer of optimism that she will pick me and our relationship in all of this, thus I am filled with hope. And feel a lot better than I have in over 4 days, sick to stomach, not eating, shaky, etc. However, that night, 5/23, we have our longest conversation yet, where we both lay out as much as we can for over 3 hours. We both cry hard in each other's arms, but at the end I ask point blank if there is any hope of me winning her back in these next 2 months, and she says she ultimately feels she still has to move out and explore with the Op regardless of what happens between now and July. She claims that she is too terrified of feeling the anguish that I am presently experiencing if she were to let Op go, and that our relationship would deteriorate as a result of her fear of feeling remorse and anger towards me for forcing her to end things with Op. At this moment, I am crushed, maybe even more than before, since the hope that I was holding to, the thing that was bringing me through all of this anguish and misery, has been away. This happened 5 days ago, and things have been awkward between my wife and I since then. We had intercourse once, but our connection did not seem to be as strong as it had been in the good 2 weeks after D-Day. My aspirations of even surviving the next 2 months of near normalcy seem to be crushed. We're hosting a large Memorial Day celebration at our place tomorrow with my parents, sister, her father, cousin and kids, and so on, so I'm just trying to concentrate on that. After that, I'm not sure what the future holds. My wife is always open to speaking with me, asking how I'm doing, kissing me, holding me, telling me she loves me, but I know in her mind she wants to be with Op and wouldn't even be home if she had a place to go. I'm not sure how to bring up reconciliation or MC with her. R seems to be out of the question in her present frame of mind. My hope and plan was to simply show her as much love and affection as possible in the hopes that she would change her mind and come out of the affair fog so she could see clearly the devastation she is causing me, soon to be our son, and herself, because she clearly won't be able to have a fully healthy relationship with me, or Op, or anyone until she can work on herself. She revealed to me through tears that she is a selfish person, and that it is her selfishness that is forcing her to damage her family and make the choice to leave in order to better her happiness and prevent the anguish I am currently experiencing. She would prefer I bear this suffering than bear it herself, which is the crux of the problem and the biggest impediment to R. This has been a very lengthy narrative. I appreciate everyone who have made it this far. I'm not sure what to do next, how to feel, or how to feel about my wife. Should I approach her about MC? Should I speak to her father, who is also a father figure to me? I have no genuine support system. I have relatives, but we don't talk about these things, and they would probably reject my wife for the suffering she has caused. Things aren't quite that straightforward. She is not a bad person, she just did something bad and is now caught up in the affair cloud, believing that this new Op can provide her more than I can. It would be very appreciated if anybody could contribute a similar tale, guidance, or experience. I'm barely holding on right now, with just the idea of my kid and maybe some false hope for the future keeping me alive.